A lot of technical roles at the engineering level, at the data science level, will be bumped up one level higher in terms of human intelligence and wisdom. The low-level functionality, low-level tasks are all offloaded to the AI now. Now you have to go one level higher and think, okay, what can I add value as human? So anybody working in the technical field will need to adapt to it.
Today's guest is Adnan Boz, an experienced entrepreneur, business strategy expert, artificial intelligence practitioner, and Stanford Continuing Studies instructor. Adnan has gained practical experience in bridging the gap between business, engineering, and science through his tenure at companies like Yahoo, eBay, and NVIDIA. We talked about the underlying mechanisms behind systems like ChatGPT and Bard, as well as the rise of AI songs and music, and the future projection of how AI is set to affect people in the workforce. So I really hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you do, please feel free to leave 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Thank you. I think that's a good place to start. What are the underlying mechanisms? Like, how do these systems work?
Thank you, Arsh. This is an interesting question. I guess a lot of people are curious, especially people who are not in that field. So first thing to understand is these models are generative. So previously we had a lot of different machine learning models. They weren't generative, and generative means they can predict the next whatever it is, right? And it could be image or it could be word. And specifically for ChatGPT or similar language models, we are thinking of to predict the next character, but specifically ChatGPT, we are trying to predict the next token. So what's gonna come? That means you give it a text, you start talking, maybe then you stop, you say, okay, I give it to you now, and you predict the rest. And it does that pretty much. And it does that in an interesting way, because this is not new, right? Generative algorithms were there. Transformers, in fact, Google researchers created architecture. But the reason transformer models work so well now is because now we can throw a lot of data on it and compute in a viable fashion, or actually in a cost-effective fashion. I mean, if you would try to do this, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, maybe you would have to pay tens of millions of dollars. Although I think there is they talked about the number that it costs one iteration costs like $3 million. Right now you can do it for $30. So there are a lot of examples how to do it even on your machine. So that was the main issue. Now we are here, that the computation power is here, the data is here, and we can train these algorithms. And basically it just guesses the next character. And in fact, the next character or token. In fact, there are really simple bigram models, not these deep learning models, but more bigram language models that can predict the next character. That's what we call the character-based models. And those are really good examples you can find on the internet, or you can ask ChatGPT to explain you how bigram models work, or large language models work. The large part makes it really understand a lot of things, and it was a surprise actually for a lot of people, including the researchers who invented it. And the reason is that once you start training large language models, after a while it starts actually being able to generate things which you didn't put in the original training data, right? So you start, if for example you trained it, let's assume you trained it with cooking data as a chef. Let's say you gave a lot of recipes, then you put so many recipes in there, imagine, then it starts actually understanding law. That kind of very interesting behavior is built into those language models. This is actually also the danger, right? And that's why it gives very interesting answers sometimes, but most of the time it can literally what we call generalize. It can take something which wasn't in its training data, and it can give results.
A lot of people may have this question, how do these systems or models or interactive, let's call them tools, how do they impact people in the workforce? And from your standpoint, you've been involved in this for many years. How do you see this kind of evolving without making a prediction? I know you said you're not into making predictions, but how do you see the general sort of evolution, and how do you see it affecting people in the workforce?
Yeah, that's another great question, Arsh. So AI is not new, right? And as you know, I've been working on it, at least I am working on it since 2010, 11, and people have been working on it for maybe more time. So, and companies have been using it, especially large tech companies in Silicon Valley since a long time in recommendation, other things. So we always had these smaller models, right? When I was working at Yahoo, we had this NLP pipeline, maybe 50 steps. Think about it, 50 small models come together and be able to do translation, maybe, right? Or do other NLP kind of NLP operations on the news or other text data we have at Yahoo. And it was because it was very specific, small models. Everybody right now at work, when they have a problem, they just pull pull a solution related to a model, let's say classification, and then they use it. Maybe it's a regression about scoring something, they use it. And it was very specific to that specific task. And you had to kind of fill the things around, or you may have to glue multiple models together. So the job of the human here was being able to find these different technologies, different machine learning models, or train them with data scientists, and then create a bigger solution so you can provide the solution to your customers, add value. Now, foundational models is different. So all these GPT and other things, what we call is foundational models. So foundational models is just one big model. Instead of having these small pieces of models, you have this one big model. It also covers the gaps between the solution of these different models. So you have now one big foundation model. It doesn't just classify, your emails as spam or not spam. It can also reply to your emails. I think about it. It generalizes so much that it covers a lot of different use cases. Now, it even covers the use cases where things connect to each other, right? And we've seen this with latest what people do with ChatGPT. They have these now plugins. You can say something, it goes search the internet, brings it, or you tell it to do something, it goes orders a pizza, right? If you think those are really multi-step tasks, you could do in the past only if you would actually 10 different machine learning models combined with some code and and a product around. Now we actually don't need to do that. So if you think of everybody working in the industries working with these AI models, they had the role to actually create this context and after use these different models. Now they don't have to do that. You pretty much have to just think of the value you're adding to a customer, and then go find one foundational model, maybe fine-tune it. There is a term now named fine-tuning to make it actually work specific in a domain. Maybe fine-tune it, but at the end of the day, you don't spend so much time on different pieces and gluing those pieces. So with that, a lot of technical roles, I think, at the engineering level, at the data science level, will be bumped up one level higher in terms of human intelligence and wisdom. So what we always talk about is DIKW pyramid, which is the data, knowledge, data, information, knowledge, then wisdom on top, right? So we are kind of pushing the envelope of where human is involved a little more higher, because now data, information, and knowledge is being handled by these foundational models. So anybody working in the technical field will need to adapt to it, and most probably not going to spend too much time on the details. It even generates code, right? If you look at GitHub Copilot, or AWS has another one, Code Whisperer, I think. And if you use this, you don't even have to look at code. So the low-level functionality, low-level tasks are all offloaded to the AI now. Now you have to go one level higher and think, okay, what can I add as human, add value as human? Similarly, any other job, if you're in content writing, and now you don't have to do maybe grammar check, review those kind of things, or look at the tone, right? You can just use one of these solutions. Or if you're in finance, maybe you don't have to spend so much time of analyzing maybe, let's say, 10,000 companies, but you still have to analyze maybe after filtering. You may have to analyze more high-level companies where you can add value. So that's what we see all the time. And if you go back historically, that's always what happened as well. We offloaded these at some point tasks became low-level tasks. I don't want to say they were always low-level tasks, but there are tasks which turned into low-level tasks, and we offloaded it to the machine, right? And then we didn't care actually what happened there. 30 years ago, we used to actually care about the chip, the CPU, the board. I mean, I would literally solder things on the board. And now, honestly, I don't even know what's in my laptop. So I offloaded that part to pretty much that automations and those production, which is today done with robots, right? So in that sense, I think everybody has to look to their job. So I even posted something about this. Now there's this 5-step framework. So first of all, you have to be present, right? It's the first step. Present means you cannot just close your eyes and say there's nothing happening. It is happening right now. AI was there, but suddenly it had its iPhone moment, so it's gonna change a lot of things. And first, be present. And second, actually, you have to be aware what's happening. You have to study a little. You have to, in your domain, of course, you have to understand what's happening, and you have to read about it. And I suggest everybody to read at least a couple hours a day, because if you learn 2 hours a day, it's gonna make 60 hours a month. It's gonna make 360 hours in 6 months, right? So compared to 10,000 hours, there's this 10,000 hour term to be professional something. It's still low. It's not going to make you professional in that area, but it will give you the benefit for the third step, right? And third step, you have to change something in your operating model. So that applies to companies as well as applies to individuals. So that means you have to figure out what is being disrupted right now in my business. So if I'm a content writer, what is the biggest change in content writing, right? Maybe grammar check. So if I'm a software engineer, what is the biggest impact right now? Maybe that is code generation. So everybody has to ask themselves in their industry, what is being disrupted right now? And then adapt to it. Right, and you have to adapt to it right away. It sounds patchy. You don't have actually 6 months to study this. You have maybe weeks or 1 month. So in 1 month, try to adapt to it. Try to put it into your value proposition. So put it on your resume, learn about it, try it out, right? Get the training in 1 month. Then the second step is change pretty much the way you operate. The first step will actually buy you time. The third step will buy you time. The fourth step will allow you to actually implement it in longer term. For a person, you can actually go take a course maybe, or add that skill to your skill set in 6 months or a 1 year time frame. And then at the last step, it's a fifth step, you will be able to tell that you're an expert in it, right? That is the point where you go to the market and say, hey, I'm expert. You can be hired on that topic at that point. So I have it on my LinkedIn post about this 5-step. I can also give it to you. You can put it under your, into the link part.
AI songs are going viral on TikTok, Instagram, and a lot of people are kind of understanding, at least from the consumer/viewer end of the equation, what AI is capable of. There's a very popular artist by the name of Drake, and there's an AI song of his that racked up millions of views, and then it got taken down by the record label. So that to me is fascinating, and I'd be curious to hear your perspective and thoughts on that.
Yeah, that happens, right? It happens with LLMs as well. People right now, there are a couple of companies in trouble because they use the data to train their algorithms. And as I mentioned, these algorithms requires a lot of data, right? I mean, it says using a little data doesn't give the same result. So using little data is even totally useless to make some application that you can sell. Now, because of that, you need a lot of data, and companies kind of maybe took the shortcut to collect this data, because today you can go literally pay for it to collect the data, whatever that data that is, and you go with the labeling companies and data collection companies, and you may pay, I don't know, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars to collect that data. Of course, there's this research community site, right, where they collect the data, or you can search the internet. You can download the whole internet, scrape the internet. In fact, ChatGPT uses web crawl, and that's like a crawl data set. They use also Wikipedia, and Wikipedia is also belongs to Wikipedia.org, right? And they have these different data sources. And the problem arises because none of these people really allowed the data to be used. So the laws are a little vague in terms of what happens to legal rights when a data is modified multiple times and used to train some intelligence, right? So it's not that data ends up, that data is exactly being exposed at the end of the AI solution, but the data is being actually given to the machine learning algorithm during training, so it can learn these things and then it can start generating. So technically, it is really not copying anything. It is learning, then generating. It's like human, right? We learn. I don't know. I listen to some music. Next thing, I can actually start singing like that. It kind of, I'm influenced about that, right? It's a similar situation, but of course today we have great content providers. So in general, that's artists or content providers, right, on both sides, and it won't be fair to them, right? It won't be fair to them to actually copy them and use it as something, to maybe get high clicks or maybe create some viral video, right? And I mean, as long as they're okay, of course that's okay. But think about it: somebody's creating your AI and creating this conversation like we're doing here right now, and starts, I don't know, collecting ads on YouTube or selling it similarly. I mean, what would you feel about it? Because this is what you're trying to do. This is what you represent, and suddenly there's a copy of you. And the biggest problem is it's anonymity. So there is somebody behind of this, right? And the face is definitely not the person. And maybe the person is totally anonymous, totally hidden. You don't even know who's doing this. And there's always some motivation, right? And honestly, a lot of these things are money driven. So somebody is doing something to earn money, utilizing other people to earn money. And I think that is the non-ethical part to me, like using famous people or using like good content or using anything possible available on the internet to actually increase your content clicks or whatever they're after. And that's why they had to take it down, because laws are there. Laws are not missing. If you use actually an image from Getty Images, you put it on your website, and I can guarantee you 1 week later, some lawyer will call you, or they won't even call. They will just either send a takedown, or they will send you a bill or they will sue you. So it's that level. But when you put something into the AI model, they cannot scrape it. So how it works is that these lawyers constantly scrape the internet, and then they look for their content, if it is there or not. Could be music, could be sound, could be image. And then once the system catches one of them, then they take legal actions. So with AI, it's not that easy, because maybe you use that image to train your model, and the model just was influenced about it. It's really not the exact output. Then you cannot catch these things, unless, of course, somebody makes Drake's song and puts it up there and it becomes viral. Then you obviously know that it's fake. But there are a lot of people, most probably, doing a lot of using a lot of content copying that's even flies under the radar. Nobody even sees it.
So the smarter thing to do would be to train the model with the best artists, music, cadence, lyrics, and then record it in your own voice.
I think the best thing would be to, these models are generic, right? Because they're foundational. It's not really domain specific. So the best thing would be actually go collaborate with those songwriters or collaborate with those artists to create a train a domain-specific model. I mean, you could actually maybe collaborate with one of these artists or singers to create something very specific, then go and release that with collaboration. And I bet that will bring actually much more value not just to the person who's doing it, also to the artist as well as the fans of those artists. And it is much more easier to market something if the artist is behind the original artist, right?
And I very much appreciate your insight and your time. Please let everybody know where they can find you, where they can learn more about what you do and learn more from you.
AI Product Institute is my website, but I use my LinkedIn profile page, Adnan Boz, together, and I can share the link with you. And I post everything there. That is my main social media page.